Okay, hey everybody. Now, how many of you remember Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County in Arizona? Well, he's kind of been out of the press for a while, and if you're not from that area, most likely you don't. I, for one, know him fairly well, as I lived in Arizona way back when, and I still have family living there. Now, this guy was always a take no nonsense from anyone kind of guy. He had even made prisoners wear pink prison garb in the pup tents outside the facilities for, I would imagine, humiliation and humbling purposes. Now, I'm not sure if he does that anymore or not. Well, check that. I know for a fact he doesn't do it anymore, as Obama made certain that he wouldn't be reelected to a seventh term as sheriff. Now, how do I know that, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, shortly after the long form version of Obama's birth certificate was released on Wednesday, April 27th, 2011, Arpaio went after the forged birth certificate, or as the mainstream media, or rather lamestream media, tagged it, the fake birther movement. Whatever the case, Arpaio went after it as hard, if not with more fervor, than anyone else, as though Obama had, now what's the saying? Put a bee in his bonnet? Anyway, Arpaio was not letting up on that story for anything, which for anyone who's really awake knows that birther movement was very real, and Democrats would use their go-to if anyone disputed its authenticity by saying what else? Racist! How dare you question the first black president this country's ever elected? Don't you mean selected? Right, Daddy Bush? Whatever. Anyway, they knew they would stop a lot of people dead in their tracks by using that go-to tactic, but not Arpaio. Oh, no, no, no. Joe and his team would do much investigative work behind the scenes to get to the bottom of it. Now, again, if you're awake, there's no question to its authenticity. The only real question left for us was, why would someone release something so fake, as if it's a sleight of hand trick meant to leave us scratching our heads for the foreseeable future? Not to mention, waste time proving what was already blatantly obvious, that a 10-year-old could have forged a better one. I mean, if you haven't looked at it, you gotta look at it. I'm gonna post a picture right here. Now, I should mention that on the following Monday, again, the following Monday, on May 2nd, 2011, not even a week after the long form was released, the country got some of the most amazing news ever reported. You see, Obama needed something huge to distract the public from preventing a forest fire of sorts concerning the fake birth certificate. Now, distraction of this magnitude is what is referred to as a flashbang. Look over here! Kind of thing. Well, you really should be looking the other direction. But what would it take? I imagine him saying. It has to be something so monumental that the birther movement will never be addressed again. I know, I imagine him shouting with glee. Let's go in lickety-split and capture the very guy that we could never quite find despite all the fancy gadgetry, advanced military technology at our disposal during the past 2 decades. And, as icing on the cake, this guy just happens to be the one who was blamed for orchestrating 9/11. That will surely get the public's mind off the certificate and see me as not only an American citizen, but an American hero. Heck, I could rob a bank and still run for mayor and win. But you're already the president. Never mind. So on May 2nd, 2011, less than a week later, mind you, Osama bin Laden died. Again. Huh? You'll find out. Now, former Maricopa Sheriff Joe Arpaio has been at war with the Department of Justice for quite some time. Now, I'm not sure how many people knew this or recalled it, But by being a former DEA agent, he completely understands all the particulars of gun running, drug dealing, and child sex trafficking as it relates to the former Obama administration, which I know is probably going to come to a surprise to a lot of you Obama lovers. But keep listening, it gets better. Now, as the Sheriff of Maricopa County, and Arizona being a border state with Mexico, he was in the know concerning the illegal activities of the Mexican cartels, associated terror groups, and key members of the Obama administration who, one way or another, allowed these heinous practices to proceed. Now, whether it was by an "don't tell me what you're doing, just do it" kind of thing, or even a micromanaging setup where he had to know every little detail of the jig. Whatever the case may be, when Arpaio refused to surrender and go along to get along, as so many before him have done, from anywhere to say John McCain, allegedly, Ambassador Stevens, allegedly, basically anyone who may have found themselves in, how should I say, a compromising position that they didn't necessarily want going public. Anyway, when he refused to play ball, is that more of a familiar phrase? He was targeted, as President Trump would say, bigly targeted. Now keep in mind that the Second Amendment was essentially being held hostage under Obama and the puppet Attorney General Eric Holder, as the Fast and Furious gun running operation placing American guns in the hands of drug cartels would ultimately be blamed for all the violence coming to our soil. How convenient is that? It was the perfect crime. Who would ever suspect it went all the way to the very top? Now, I should say, in case you didn't know, the Fast and Furious is way more than just a fictional action-packed movie franchise, as it has been unequivocally proven that Obama and Holder not only broke the law, they obliterated it, and law enforcement blood was now on their hands. Consequently, Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was the first such victim of this highly illegal activity in which Holder's DOJ, Department of Justice, shipped guns to the cartels when he was murdered with one of these very guns. Now, needless to say, Holder was made to answer for these crimes in front of Congress. And naturally, or shall I say, needless to say, he refused to cooperate. Most likely, I'm guessing, to save his ass from getting buried in the desert. Not to mention, he was more than likely told that if he played it close to the vest, Obama would simply pardon him, whatever the sentence he got. That's quite an enticing aspect of the setup, just to manage to keep your cool while staying quiet. Wouldn't you agree? Knowing no matter what, you're going to come out at the other end. Now, have you ever had a dream where you knew you were dreaming? I believe it's called lucid dreaming. So you knew no matter how bad things got in the dream, you would come out smelling like a rose. In fact, you could do some unthinkable things you wouldn't normally do in real life because you knew you'd be waking up as your getaway. No, you don't know what I'm talking about? Okay, me neither. Whatever the case. By refusing to turn over crucial documents related to the operation, Holder was found guilty of contempt of Congress. Now, a guilty verdict doesn't mean squat, though, if there's no bite behind the growl. Astonishingly, he avoided jail time, like someone else or two we know. Once again, proving there are double standards in D.C. where they are seemingly untouchable above the law, especially when the POTUS has got your back because he's in on it, allegedly. Not to mention an Obama-appointed federal judge gets assigned the case and agrees to play ball, allegedly. Now, what I'm about to read to you is from Politico. It goes, now the House has voted to hold Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress over his failure to turn over documents related to the Fast and Furious scandal, the first time Congress has taken such a dramatic move against a sitting cabinet official. The vote was 255 to 67, with 17 Democrats voting in support of a criminal contempt resolution, which authorizes Republican leaders to seek criminal charges against Holder. This Democratic support came despite a round of behind-the-scenes lobbying by senior White House and Justice officials, as well as pressure from party leaders to support Holder. Now, the recipients of said guns, namely the drug cartel, coming courtesy of Holder's DOJ, used these guns to support their own gun running, drug trafficking, as well as human smuggling, which, alas, included children. Moreover, because it has been categorically established fact that the drug cartels are working in concert with known terrorist groups, like the Muslim Brotherhood and ISIS, the DOJ under Holder was also partnered with terrorist groups who have brought all of the above and murder to the United States. Now, oddly enough, when Holder was cornered by Congress, he refused to cooperate and was found in contempt. Now, one may wonder why Holder was not jailed, but one probably wouldn't wonder very long when knowing the entire story. But honestly, would it have really mattered when in all likelihood, like I said, Obama would have simply just pardoned him? Nevertheless, for shites and giggles, if we were dealing with a just government, Holder's alleged crimes would have included the following. Oh, what's the point? It doesn't make sense to say it. It's just going to make you angry as it did me. So I won't torture you by listing what he could have been found guilty of. Just like what Hillary could have been found guilty of. I'm sure you can figure it out, at least for the most part, though. It's almost like, though, we're hearing he was found extremely careless with handing over guns to drug cartels. Just not grossly negligent, right? Where have we heard that before? Right. Hillary skated past indictments after the straight and narrow FBI director James Comey, James Foney, who had no place making the decision in the first place, decided, now what was it again? All right, no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute on the facts found. Well, James, how about the facts buried? How about that? Would that have made a difference? I'm willing to bet it would have. All the difference, in fact. But there I go again, getting off the main topic. Now, suffice it to say, Sheriff Joe has been busier than a cat covering up crap on a marble floor with his effort to bring down Eric Holder and his illegal activities that plagued all border states, including Arizona. Evidently, Arpaio has been directly supplying President Trump's administration with intel, which has led to the secret indictments that QAnon, if you're familiar with 4chan and 8chan, is speaking of now. The likes of Liz Crokin, Jordan Sather, Roy Potter, Tracy Beans, among others, are reporting on. I guess you can include me in that group now too, huh? Well, maybe not to that degree, but I can always aspire to be like them with your help. In any event, because, as mentioned earlier, that Arpaio was former DEA, it was inevitable that he would make contact with apprehended cartel members who were illegally in the country, as well as having the contacts to take him to the dark side of this activity. Now, it may be becoming clear as to why Holder was removed from the Attorney General position and replaced by none other than Loretta Lynch, which opens up a whole new can of worms, and we're not going to get into that in this video for the sake of time. But I'm willing to bet you already know where I'd be going with that. Now, I think it's safe to say, considering this was done under the dark of night, like Batman, Joe Arpaio did a thankless job, like Batman, while selflessly losing his sheriff seat in the process, which was due to fabricated stories to ruin him once Obama learned what he was really up to, allegedly. So I can draw one conclusion. Joe Arpaio is Batman. Now we know. Now, let me make one thing clear, besides the fact that he's Batman. Arpaio is as much of a racist as President Trump is, which is to say he's not. Now, his melting pot within his administration's gender and race completely debunks that bogus accusation. But wouldn't you know it? Neither him or Trump had ever been questioned of being a racist before sticking their necks out. Trump, when he decided to put his hat into the ring to be a GOP candidate, and now Arpaio working behind the scenes, and being a national hero, in my opinion. And by knowing that enough people are still sound asleep, well, Obama and company knew this fake news would more than do the trick. Just to make sure, though, his boy, George Soros, I'm sure that name rings a bell, would dump millions into Arpaio's opponent's campaign, all but guaranteeing Pinzone would win, albeit not by a landslide like one might expect considering all the advantages made available to Pinzone, but enough to win. Now, what I'm about to read to you is from the ultra-liberal Huffington Post. It goes, most notably, the Arizona legislature passed a state law a couple years ago that allows immigrants who are willingly trafficked into the country to be charged as co-conspirators of human trafficking. Now, Arpaio was defiant Sunday night on local conservative radio station KTAR by saying, I'm going to tell you something, Jay. I don't need the feds to do my crime suppression to opt to arrest illegals. I can do it without the federal authority, and I'm going to continue to do it. It makes no difference. It helps us, because I don't have to do all the paperwork for the feds, number one. And number two, I won't be under their umbrella, their guidance. So I will operate the same way. Nothing is going to change. He then added later in the show, they just don't want me. I'm the poster boy. Now, shortly after that interview, to add insult to injury, Arpaio lost his ICE enforcer credentials, as the Obama administration needed him completely out of the way concerning the arrest of illegal aliens who may have some role in the trafficking. Now, the deep state, in support of Obama and Holder, began to propagandize Arpaio's efforts to stop trafficking of all types by branding him, what else, a racist. When Arpaio would not stop, he was charged with contempt of court by the federal government. I just want to mention here that this is nowhere close to the first time Obama went after someone who was messing up his game. And here's one example. Now, if you saw Hillary's America documentary by Dinesh D'Souza, and he explained how he'd pled guilty in federal court to one charge of using a straw donor to make an illegal campaign contribution in 2012 United States Senate campaign, which is considered a felony. Now, consequently, on September 23rd of that year, he was sentenced to 8 months in a halfway house near his home in San Diego, 5 years of probation, and to top it off, $30,000 fine. Now, if you're not outraged by what I just said, it's most likely because you're not familiar with the term straw donor. So let me explain. Now, as part of the Federal Election Campaign Act in 1971, it was enacted that in federal elections in the United States, straw donor schemes are illegal, meaning no person shall make a contribution in the name of another person or knowingly permit his name to be used to effect such a contribution, and no person shall knowingly accept a contribution made by one person in the name of another person. Wow. I mean, I think he should have gotten the chair. That's just crazy. He thought he was going to get away with that? I hope you can read through my sarcasm, because, oh my gosh. So what you're telling me is you're not allowed to give a Senate candidate more money than allowed, but a presidential candidate illegally accepting foreign money from foreign countries is fine. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's just another example of DC double standards. But in actuality, Dinesh knew it was payback for his previous documentary he had done on Obama. Obama was livid, so when you mess with the president, I mean, I guess you got to expect some retaliation. And I mean, and he has the control of the gamut. I mean, he can do pretty much whatever he wants, so I guess he got off easy. And to make, I guess, lemonade out of the lemons he was handed, Dinesh managed to use quite a bit of the footage that was shot in the halfway house. And he learned some stuff, too, in there. Good for you, Dinesh. Now, Dinesh, however, was prohibited from voting in the 2016 election, or possibly any subsequent election, for that matter, due to his guilty plea to a felony. Now, although it does vary from state to state, and I seem to recall a couple states in the last couple years, like California, and even during the 2016 general election, I believe it was, Virginia restored the voting rights to thousands of felons, which I'd be willing to bet came with an under the radar, you must vote for Hillary agreement. But I'm totally speculating, of course. Anyhow, now you have a better understanding as to why, when Sheriff Joe faced prison time, President Trump came to the rescue and pardoned him. And deservingly so, I might add. And as I was putting this together, I heard the great news concerning that Arpaio's announcing that he's going to run for Jeff Blake's vacant GOP Senate seat coming up. Now, my only question is, would it be too prematurely obvious if he said he was running for McCain's MP seat instead? No, before you flap from the handle, I'm not saying McCain's going to die soon. I'm not putting him in the ground before he's ready. Quite the contrary. I'm talking about, now, in my humble opinion, which is shared by a lot of people, McCain's brain cancer is as real as Pelosi's recent bout with dementia. And neither would have surfaced had Hillary won the election, as everything would have just been status quo. They're both looking for a way out, with McCain wearing his boot covering up more than likely his tracking device. And don't believe for a second that Flake is not running again because he refuses to work with President Trump. I'll just say this. Think along the lines of all the CEO resignations lately. In fact, I've heard that upward of 50 people in Congress will not be returning after the holiday extended break. Yeah, they had to have an extended break because of it. Now, why would that be? Okay. I wanted to close this segment by explaining what I meant when saying Bin Laden died again. Well, unfortunately, we've gone over, so I will have to bump OBL to the next video, as a cliffhanger of sorts, I guess. What's the saying? Always leave them wanting more? Honestly, that wasn't my intention. I promise. But just make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe so you will know when the next video is posted. And I do appreciate all of your guys' support watching these. They are pretty tedious to make sometimes, but you know, if not me, who? And if not now, when? Stay vigilant and fear no evil. God bless.